Um, Thank you everyone for coming. It's really great to have you here. I'm really excited to be with you today and I'm so pleased that you've come. My name is Jessica Perini. If you don't know me already, a lot of you already do know me. I've had over 20 years experience in the publishing industry as both an editor and a writer. And I will be your speaker for this evening, this morning, or this afternoon, depending on where you're coming from. It's a bit of a strange experience for me because I can't see any of you, but you can see me. Given I can't see you, I'd really love to know who's in the room. So if you can just chat and say hello, that would be fantastic. Hi, Georgina. She's coming in from Sydney. Steve. Hi, Steve. Hi, Wei, another person from Sydney. Catherine from the Central Coast. Joe, hello, Joe. Lorraine, hello from Perth. Suzanne, another one from Sydney. Rati from Germany. Hello, Rati. Hello, Mark from Hong Kong. Christina from Switzerland. And Matt from Hobart. My goodness, we're coming from across the globe. This is really exciting. So great to see you all here and see so many people at my webinar. Thank you so much for coming. So before I launch in, I really like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land on which I am presenting today. And they are the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I want to pay my respects to the elders past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge the First Nations people of all the lands on which my guests are attending. So thank you very much for that. I want to first talk to you guys about passion. I think passion is key to pretty much everything that we do as creatives. And if we don't have that passion, then really, what's the point? The other thing I want you to think about is your unique perspective. Now, your unique perspective is really, it could be part of your DNA. It could be the way you were born, something in your genome. It could be the way you were brought up. It could be the way you think about things and the individual way or quirky way you think about things. It could be an illness that you went through that formed the way you think about things. Yeah, so if you think about that, I mean, feel free to write it in the chat pod, or you can just keep it in your own head again. Just think about how it is, how you think differently to other people, or yeah, what is it that's unique to you that might be interesting or worth embracing. My passions really are books and words, of course. You know, everything I do is about books and words. I've worked in libraries and bookshops and publishing houses, and I write constantly. I write press releases and I write on social media and Facebook and Twitter, and I've written for charities and nonprofits and corporates and authors, and you know, like I'm writing all the time, but I'm also passionate about child rights. And those of you who know me know that I write for Chill Out, and I was vice president for Chill Out, which is a child rights organisation. And Jo Hind will know all about that because she was with me in that. And we work for the freedom of children from immigration detention. The other passion that I have is permaculture. And so I love to grow things, and I love to, I love everything to do with ecology. And, you know, I could watch how wolves change rivers, you know, a million times, that documentary, or, you know, I will just, I learn about it constantly and I read about it constantly. So that is another passion. So yeah, just think about it from that perspective. But my main job for the last 20 years has been as a senior editor. I've been freelancing. I did work in-house 20 years ago, and then I just got out. So, and I've been freelancing ever since, and I just absolutely love it. I've written 2 books, both on my passions, one on child rights and one on permaculture. And yeah, the aim of this presentation really is to say to you, I don't want you to put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to your writing or your editing. It's really, really important if you want to be a successful writer or editor or both. It's so important to look outside the square, to do things, be flexible, use technology, use all you can of all your contacts, all your creativity, all your passion, and all your unique perspective to go out there and just be creative and make the world a better place. What COVID is doing in the current situation for publishing, it's a bit of a sobering picture, but please bear with me because there's some really good stuff that comes after that. Then we're going to look at the good news and see what the good trends are in publishing at the moment. And then we're going to look at the basics of, I'm going to go backwards a little bit and say, hey, if you want to be a writer or an editor, you know, these are the associations that you need to make. These are the things that you need to build up. And maybe you're already a writer or an editor and you want to be better at those things. So you might want to go back to that square one and say, hey, I need to develop these things a bit more if I want to be more successful at what I do. And then I'm going to start looking at a few more tangential ideas as a writer and editor, and that is diversifying into other things which you might not have thought of. So for example, I've been diversifying into teaching online courses, and I've taken my skills and my passion and my perspective and I've just put it into these online courses to teach writing and editing, and mixed it in with the ecological stuff. So, and then I'm going to talk about educational publishing briefly. We do have someone here who is doing very well from educational publishing, so I hope to talk to him a little bit later. Going to also talk about copyright, but none of the boring stuff. And then I'm going to give you a little story to end the night on some really exciting things that people are doing during COVID times to use their skill and their passion to make the world a better place and to help other people and to enrich themselves as well. So I just want to say this is all the stuff from my perspective. It is not exhaustive. It is just my experience in the last 20 years. It's really the paths that I have taken. There are a million paths that you can take as an editor or a writer. And this is in no way going to describe all of those paths. It's just the paths that I have taken and have found to be successful and have worked for me and have meant that I can have both an active and a passive income, and that I don't have to split my head into 50 different pieces to work all the time, because let's admit, we can't work 90, 100 hours a week. It's just impossible to, I mean, some people do, but I don't. I personally can't sit in front of a screen for that long. So I need passive forms of income to make sure I can pay the bills, because I live in Sydney. So, we have to pay the bills. So, yeah, hopefully this will be of help to you guys. And if you have any questions along the way, please feel free to put them in the chat pod. And then when we finish off, hopefully we're going to have time, and hopefully you guys have time to stick around, and then we can all chat together. You can meet each other. There's some really exciting people in the room and people I'd love to meet each other. So that'd be great. So the bad news. Publishing houses are really struggling right now. COVID has been a really, really difficult time for a lot of publishing houses. Friends in publishing are doing it a bit tough. people have been told, okay, you can stay, but you need to take a 25% cut in your salary. Lonely Planet, for example, have closed their London and Melbourne offices. They're no longer publishing new books. They're only publishing books that are already in-house, so new editions and things like that, or already existing products. Allen and Unwin Scribe, Hardy Grant Publishing, redundancies, cuts. It's a pretty grim picture. So it's a very difficult time in publishing at the moment. Thousands of bookstores have closed, and the bad news doesn't stop there. The good news for editors and writers is that self-publishing is growing at a very, very fast rate. So I'll give you a few numbers in terms of American numbers, which are significant. They have a significant amount of writers. In 2018, the number of writers were about 1 million self-published writers on Amazon. And that grew, within 1 year, that grew by 40%. Now, that's really significant. I think one of the reasons for that is that self-publishing technology is becoming far more accessible and far more affordable as well. And I can absolutely testify everybody is writing their COVID novel right now. So lots of work going on at the moment. A lot of editors who are quite busy at the moment. So in terms of editing or writing, there's a lot of busyness going on. Ebook sales are on the rise. We saw that leading up to COVID, like just before lockdown was happening, there were a lot of book sales happening, but then when we went into lockdown and the world sort of closed down, people stopped working, people started working from home, ebook sales went up. Really significant numbers from a few places like Simon & Schuster, for example. Digital sales are running as much as 50% over the same time this time last year. So, I mean, that is really, really significant in terms of both editing and writing. So obviously we've got the physical bookstores are closed down, but the electronic stuff is ramping up. And the interest in the electronic stuff is ramping up as well. Yeah, people are borrowing ebooks in record numbers, which is really exciting. And we will talk about libraries coming up later on. Crowdfunding is becoming more popular, and you're probably wondering why I'm mentioning crowdfunding, but crowdfunding is actually an interesting and tangential way I want you to start thinking about publishing. And I'm going to end with a case study, which is a really good example of crowdfunding and how it can be used in your publication. And more people are turning to the internet for connection, education, business, and a whole range of other reasons. So that's great for editors and writers because people need to communicate. I really want to encourage you to join Writing New South Wales. If you want to be an editor, Editors New South Wales, do courses. There are courses at TAFE, unis, private colleges. There's fantastic courses at the Writers Studio. If you cannot find a course near you, I'd really encourage you to join a writer's circle. If you don't have any writers' circles near you, start one and read constantly. Just read and read and read. I had a quote from Stephen King, and he says, if you don't have time to read, you don't have time to write. So I think that's really right. I think the best writers that I have are really good readers because they're engaged and they're constantly learning and they're constantly engaging with other writers as well. The next thing is often not done by a lot of authors. A lot of people will sit at their computer and they'll type away, and it's very solitary writing. and editing. And people come to me and say, you're the only person I've spoken to about this. I say, well, okay, I need to not be the only person you talk to about this. I need you to get connected, because getting connected just means that you're tapped into systems. It makes you a better writer. Learning to get connected is also about learning to what publishers are doing, what magazines are publishing, the type of stuff that you're writing or editing, journals, newspapers. I would recommend this book for anyone who is in the writing or editing game. This is the Australian Writers Marketplace. Now, for those of you who are not in Australia, there are writers' marketplaces across the world. So you can, they're not always, they don't always have that title, but they're directories of, they have all these things that you see in front of you on the screen. They're usually about 1,000 pages long, really thick books, and they have the contacts of every publisher, every journal, every newspaper. Most agents, they will have competitions, awards, calendars of events, everything you need to get connected with your writing craft. Do the awards. You would be surprised how many awards that we entered into when I was working in-house in publishing. We would enter awards and nobody else would enter the category and we would win. It's just a big secret of educational publishing. Sometimes, you know, like you have one entry or two entries and then all of a sudden, you know, they're like, the award winner is, by the way, there was only one entry. So please do enter awards. Online courses. Now, this is something that I've just started doing in the last few years. And I would say that as an author or an editor, it's a really great thing to do because it just creates a passive income source for you, which can go on while you're working on something else. This can earn you income in another way. Start with a 5-minute course. There are different models out there. So if you're thinking about it, I would really encourage you to just look across the board and read the fine print. I would think with the rise of people wanting to do online courses, that it's a really good way to go if you're already a communicator. ELR, PLR, the Public Lending Rights Scheme and Educational Lending Rights Scheme. Now, these are Australian based. For those of you who are overseas at the moment, ELR and PLR, similar PLR schemes are operating in at least 29 countries, including many in Europe, Canada, Israel, and New Zealand. What I would say to you is that if you're a writer or an editor or a creator of any kind, think very, very carefully and about educational publishing. Because educational publishing is the main type of publishing in which you will attract ELR and PLR payments. I found out about this. I was basically approached by a publisher, and the publisher said to me, I've got all these books, I've got this series that I'm doing for 8 to 12-year-olds, and I've exhausted my resources for writing and I need a whole bunch of writers. And there's only so many titles that you can write yourself. And he found out about this scheme. And he had just exhausted himself, all the writers he knew, and then he was looking for a new batch of writers. So I got a few friends involved, a few people might be in this room today. We all started writing, and we had 6 weeks. We were paid $2,000. Catherine Dunk is in this room, that's right. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, $2,000 back then, but I think it's 2000. I can't remember. Catherine could remind me. Wasn't a lot, huge amount of money, but um, the the royalty that we paid is not the main thing. The main thing is that every year since we wrote that book, we have been sent checks, two checks, one ELR check and one PLR check. Um, and so I don't mind telling you that I've written a couple of books, and they were both on ELR and PLR, and I get several $1,000s every year just from just from that 6 week investment all those years ago. Now we all know that as writers or editors, we may have copyright in work depending on the agreements we have with our publishers. We might be commissioned to do work, and if we're commissioned to do work, there might be a license agreement saying that we either keep copyright or we give copyright to whoever is commissioning that work. So it can be slightly technical, but I would encourage every single one of you who writes or who creates, if you're whether you're a journalist or a photographer or a visual artist or anything, register it with the Copyright Agency. That's in Australia. If you're in another country, check out whatever is the comparable agency in your country. It collects fees from copying of books, it deducts its administrative expenses, and then it distributes the balance to the copyright owners every year. So if somebody uses your work and it turns up on a survey of what work's been used, then you will get paid for the use of that work. So it's a really good way of earning an ongoing income if your work is being used. And you know, I'm in publishing, and I didn't even realize that I could register my photos that had been used in books. Yeah, then all of a sudden I was receiving checks for my work. So tap in, put your name in there, and then watch and see what grants are being given for what and what's going on with copyright, because things change all the time and buckets of money become available and you may not know about it unless you're tapped in. So I thought that was a really important lesson to learn. And I think if you're going to survive and thrive as an editor or a writer, connection is so important. You just can't sit in your room and just go for it. You have to really connect with others, connect with societies around you, connect with professional associations, and connect with society and see what's going on. And if you can be of help, and be bold and be creative and be flexible, and don't put all your eggs in one basket. Put them in dozens of baskets and just go out there and write and edit and be of use.